Here are some rose bushes. You see the rose hips on top of the bushes. They can be eaten in the wintertime, or the children could eat them, but they could never eat the insides. They could only eat the outsides. Some people use them as a tea. There can be a lot of great sadness when you talk of this berry, because it was when the Cheyenne villages were destroyed in the wintertime. Everything was burnt up. When the children hid when the soldiers attacked, and after the soldiers left and had burned the village down and left, these children would climb out from the snow tunnels where they hid, or under the brush, under the rocks and logs. They would crawl out. Everything was burnt up, and a lot of the enemy scouts made sure nothing was available for anybody to eat. So they would, a survivor would get out and call the children, and they would gather. Many of them didn't have any, their parents were killed. So they took care of their little brothers and their little sisters, and they joined with maybe a grown-up, and to start on their trek to another Cheyenne village that they knew which direction it was, at many days' walk from them. And along the way, this is one of the berries that the children could pick and eat along the way, because it was the only food that they had. Many of the women always carried their sewing bags, and in their sewing bags was sinew from the back of a deer or a buffalo. This was the thread of the Indian woman they used to sew moccasins with. But they would roll it into a ball and give it to that child to suck on when they were hungry, or when they were crying for their mother. When the warriors went to battle, this was one of the teas that they had. This has a lot of stickers in it. You cut the stickers off of it. That way you can handle it. And then you can, once you cut all the stickers off, you skin it. You skin the plant, cutting all the stickers off. Some old ladies carry a rosebush root in their bag, their sewing bags. It's a root that's black in color, and they put it in a pot of water, and it makes a tea. And it was kind of magical, because my grandmother had one, and whenever we would start a little fire somewhere, she would take this root out of her purse or her bag and put it in a kettle of hot water, and she would make a red tea. The tea from rosebush is very good for diarrhea. It was given to babies that that were sick and had the runs, and it stopped diarrhea. How you use it is you cut it in slivers. and then you steep it in hot water. And it turns into a red tea. The liquid turns red. You cut it in little pieces. This is what the warriors would drink when they were in the wintertime, when they were on warpath. Because they always camped near the water where the willows grew, so that they could bend the willows over to make their lodges that they threw buffalo robes over, and the warriors could sleep. Here are some of the cuttings of the rosebush, and this is what you make tea with. You just steep it in water, and it gets turns red. This is one of the most popular teas because it's the only one that usually is left in the wintertime. Everybody drinks the mint teas, the Juneberry leaf tea, and this is the only one that you can basically harvest. One band of Cheyennes harvests the Juneberry stems, and you can also make a tea in the wintertime with the Juneberry. But this is your rosebush. It's how you make the tea. Henin, henin, henin. The rosebush was very important because it was probably the only tea that was available in the wintertime, because everybody drank the other teas. They were a favorite, like the mint and the Juneberry bush tea. But many of the hunters that were out in the field, that even the warriors, when they went into battle in the wintertime, they camped near the streams along the banks where the willows grew, so that they could bend the willows over and put their buffalo robes on top. And some would put their buffalo robes inside, and there was their shelter for the night. And the rose hips tea was one of the most common and probably the most popular during the wintertime, because they grew thick along the streams. They were right next to the willows, so they were real handy to have, and it made for a warm drink. And they had nothing else, because when many of them were in a battle, they didn't carry their food supply with them, and so a tea was it was easy to come by. And because of all the stickers, my father used to say, people get angry at these plants because some of them, like the nettles, stings you, and the stickery points of the rose bush can be very painful. And he said, but that's just the nature of the plant. It's just how you feel a plant, because when you're talking to people, you're going to find that their words are more painful than the prickly parts of this plant. So that's just the nature of this plant. It's stickery, but that's how we identify it. You can also dig the roots up. My grandmother had a black root in her purse or her sewing bag, and when we'd be out in the evenings and stuff, and we were going to have a tea, she would take this black root out of her purse, and she would put it in a pot of water, and after she boiled it and steamed it for a while, we had rosebush tea. And when we drank the tea up, she would take back her root and put it back into her purse. And I asked her one time, "Where did you get this root? Where did you dig it at?" And she says, "I didn't dig this one. My mother gave me this plant, this root." Now, how many years was she using it to make tea? See, there's a lot of magic to plants. The Indian people, how they picked them, how respectful they were to them. When you're respectful and you thank a plant and you use it in a good way, it will always produce for you. No matter it's tea or medicines, they will always produce for you. Because when our Creator created earth and he sprinkled dirt upon the water and the land began to form, all of the plants and bushes and animals started to grow, started to come into being. In the plants, he says, "I'm going to give each of you plants a spirit." And the plants were very happy to be given a spirit. So all the plants were saying that my medicine is going to be strong for you. You have given me a spirit. You have given me something very important. So you can use my medicine when you doctor people. You can drink the teas from many of our plants because we have a spirit and we have power, and it's yours to use. We're giving it to you. So this is the story of rose bushes and all the other plants, that they do have spirits. See, the Jitsistas, the Cheyenne people, they believe that we are related to everything. We're related to the trees, the ground, the rocks, the ants, the elements. We're related to everything. They're all our relatives. So this is why people of the Sistas people, this is why they talk to plants. This is why they have so many things that they speak to. Even the stones, they speak to them because they're a relative. They with Sistas, that's their belief. We're related to everything. They're all our relatives. Even the elements are our relatives. When the lady hung up the sinew with the head lice in it, those are our relatives. To the spirits of the north that you spoke to, those are our relatives. So she spoke to them as a relative, as a friend. Because she treated them with respect, they granted her wishes. With the snowstorm, it quit. And they always honored this old lady. They would take food to her. They would always say nice things about her. Even though she was straggly, her hair was unkept and it blew in a wind. You don't value people by how good they dress and how they're all fixed up and neat. They are honored by how kind they are and understanding they are when they're speaking of plants, when they're saying prayers. Their prayers are very strong because they have a relationship to everything, all the beings. If I was to pick this plant next to a stream, there's spirits in that water. a lot of times you have to acknowledge them spirits also. If I pick this near a sand rock, I would have to acknowledge the little people. If I picked it near different places, a swamp, I would them spirits are very powerful. So you would lay offerings to them. And when you did that, the tea was extra strong. The tea was more powerful. This is the red tea of the rosebush. And here's the plant, the little berries that you can take and you eat the edges of them. But you can eat the whole thing if you want. But we just eat the edge, the lining of it. This is your rose hips. When the children would look for their camp after the village was destroyed, these are one of the few things that they had to eat when they would hide near the streams as they were looking for their people. These they could make tea with the stems, but they could also eat the berries. The old ones would always talk about. They always talked about good things. When children were filled with sadness, they would always talk about the time when the snow melts and the berries begin to ripen. All the people come together. All the families come together to pick berries and to share foods and to share stories and laughter. They give the children something else to think about the good times that were coming, even though they have just lived through tragedy in their life. Maybe their parents were taken from them. Maybe they lost a father. Maybe they lost both of them. But they were taught to be survivors. So they could dry their own meat, they could make their own moccasins. Little kids were taught at a very early age to survive. So that's I always say that the rosebush is kind of a berry of sadness because of the children that, as they were looking for their people, their people's camps, they would cry, the children would cry, and they would give them berries to pick, to suck on. The hawthorn, the bearberry, is usually abundant in the wintertime, and the rosebush, rose hips. Many times, the woman would take from her sewing bag a piece of sinew. She would roll it up into a ball and give it to the children to suck on when they cried, when they were hungry, because they didn't have any food. The thread, this is the thread of the Indian people. It is very strong. It comes from the back of a deer or a buffalo. They call it backstrap. There's a long history of this. We still use it in our ceremonies. We're one of the few people that still save it. I and my son both save it. We clean it when we butcher deer or buffalo, and we dry it this way because we use it for different sewing our buffalo robes and different things. We use the sinew. So it's it's very valuable to the Indian people, and there's so many stories about sinew. Some people say that when Chief Dullknife escaped from Fort Robinson, they lived on sinew because that's all they had. Sinew and rose bushes along the creeks because they were hiding out and the soldiers were looking for them. The wives had sinew in their sewing bags, so they were able to chew on it and just to, it was the only food that they really had. So there's many stories about all the foods and all the plants that we use. Some are good stories, and there's some things that are handed down from generation to generation. These stories are passed down. They give our children something to appreciate when they get sinew. They're able to talk about it. They're able to share the stories with their friends. So the sinew and many of our items are filled with stories, filled with legends. Each one has a spirit.